Earthquake warnings. Thousands of Californian students are at risk in university buildings. Sean Martin, Express UK reports. Over 45,000 students attend UCLA and 42,000 at Berkeley, and a major earthquake could be catastrophic. Students in California are at risk of major earthquake damage, as a study has found that buildings at universities are a severe risk to life if a tremor were to strike. Now, we did look into this recently concerning articles we found from Southern California Earthquake Center, and they had an article concerning the spring meeting that they had in Portland concerning geologists and developers and engineers. And the geologists had warned the developers and engineers that the sediments were underestimated as to their ability to support high-rise buildings, that they were not as strong as originally thought. Therefore, the high-rise buildings in cities of the West Coast were at a risk of crumbling much sooner at a 7 magnitude earthquake. And the geologists had requested from the officials and the developers and the engineers to retrofit buildings as fast as possible in order to save lives in the event of a magnitude 7 earthquake or larger. Of course, this shocked the developers, the officials, the engineers, because of the cost that would be involved, billions and billions of dollars. And where would they find all this money to do that? So their conclusion was that they would put off changing the building code until a later date. Can you believe that? That's how they solved that problem. They decided to defer changing the building code to oblige people to retrofit existing buildings and change the building code for new buildings, which would of course make developers spend more money to make them more anti-seismic. And the engineers and did understand that this would mean that they would lose clients. They wouldn't have any projects to build because it would be so expensive. So that's where we are now. The buildings are unsafe, and there is the likelihood of big, major and megathrust earthquakes awaiting to strike the western part of the north of the West Coast, the south of the San Andreas in the West Coast, and also the middle section. So California, as we know, is extremely prone to earthquakes. It has got several fault lines running beneath the Golden State. Some of these active fault lines one of them is a very dangerous one, the Hayward Fault, Newport, Inglewood, and San Jacinto faults. And perhaps most famous, as we know, of course, the biggest one is the San Andreas Fault. That takes 75% of the pressure of the subduction of the Pacific Plate under the North American Plate. And the Walker Lane Fault System, where we have the Ridgecrest earthquakes that struck July 4th and 5th on the Walker Lane Fault System, and that takes about 25% of the subduction pressure on the West Coast. So now new research carried out by universities in California found a major earthquake could pose significant risk to life because of the outdated buildings. The old buildings, the high-rise buildings that have not been retrofitted, and of course what the geologists know about the impending major earthquakes. And we just had a foretaste of one on July 5th of 7.1 magnitude. Thank goodness it wasn't closer to Los Angeles. It was in an area that was not highly populated, and we had no loss of life. That was another miracle. But if it were closer to Los Angeles, that would have been a totally different story. An independent study carried out by University of California, UC, has found that there are 68 seismically deficient structures at the University of California in Berkeley alone, and another 18 structures at UCLA. No buildings were deemed too dangerous, which is the worst category in seismically deficient buildings, but 6 in Berkeley and 3 at UCLA posed a severe risk of life. And the rest of the buildings fell into the serious category. With 45,000 students at UCLA and 42,000 students at Berkeley, a major earthquake could be catastrophic, they say. Philip Filippo, UC Berkeley professor of structural engineering and chair of Campus Seismic Review Committee from 2001 to 2017, said, "I don't think the campus can afford to do anything. It could be lethal for the survival of the campus." Though the review was carried out under the UC's own initiative and its buildings do adhere to California regulations, the university will upgrade its structures, thank goodness. UC Berkeley Chancellor Carol Christ wrote in an open letter to the campus, "To be clear, the university was not required by law to launch this new assessment and remediation effort. All of Berkeley's buildings were designed and constructed in adherence to the codes in effect at the time of their construction." So if they were like 100 years old buildings, they were using the building code in effect 100 years ago. If they're 50-year-old buildings, they're using the building code that was in effect 50 years ago. If the buildings are 10 years old, of course, they have a better building code, hopefully. You can understand what I mean. That does not mean that they can stand up to a 7 magnitude earthquake. So in fact, there are a few, she says, if any, parallel efforts in the private sector. It's unlikely that the office buildings, shopping centers, and other places you visit will be subject to a sort of seismic review the UC is conducting, University of California, much less the ensuing remediation to which we are committed. And she goes on to say, under current California law, cities and counties are not even required to have an inventory of potentially vulnerable buildings, meaning in particular those built before 1976, implementation of what is considered to be California's first modern seismic building code. However, our university is home to some of the world's leading seismic experts. Well, you know, one of the sites I use is Seismo Berkeley from the University of Berkeley. Okay, because it's got a lot of, it posts a lot of earthquakes, a lot sooner than the USGS posts them on their sites. So that's why I like to use them. It's an easy map to use, very nice. So as opposed to pulling out from a map that USGS has. So under current California laws, cities, counties not even required, but they do have an inventory. So she says we cannot alter the fact that a majority of the buildings across the UC system were built before 1976 and therefore are very least potential candidates for seismic upgrades. What we can do is spare no effort to make our campus as safe as possible and as quickly as possible, and we are doing exactly that. So I'm glad about that. Obviously this announcement means that they're going to retrofit their buildings. Another reason why California is so earthquake prone is that it sits upon the deadly ring of fire, as we know, the largest, most active fault line in the world, stretching from New Zealand all around the east coast of Asia over to Canada, Aleutian Islands, Canada, US West Coast, all the way down southern tip of South America, and causes more than 90% of the world's earthquakes. The plates which make up the ring of fire are so huge, even the slightest shift results in massive tremors, volcanic activity, and even tsunamis. Now let's go and take a look together at the map, see what's going on today. And now, as the CSEC, Southern California Earthquake Center, shows, CSEC, Oh, this is the article that we read about concerning the seismic change in the predicting how earthquakes will shake in tall buildings, etc. And it was not good, obviously. Okay, this is the article that we read a couple of weeks back concerning the fact that they don't have good sedimentation. They're underestimated concerning how they will stand in a major earthquake. Anyway, you'll see that here. I'm going to leave a post for you so that you can see that. And no, I don't want this. Let's go back to our Southern California Earthquake Center, SCEC. That's what we want, because they have a short listing of the earthquakes. And you can see that this one here, we're going to see that this is very close to Los Angeles, Riverside. 3.5 magnitude at 10 kilometers. That's not shallow. Because the crust there is very thin, that could be, that's about 6 miles down. Then 3.2 at 18 kilometers. Searles Valley, that's around Ridgecrest, 2.6, 16 kilometers. As we know, that's a volcanic field. 2.6 magnitude, Olancha, California, 3.5 at Ridgecrest. So you can see they're not small. They are not small. I mean, most people would have felt these. 2.7, Searles Valley again, 3.2, Ridgecrest, 15 kilometers, 15 kilometers. I want to know if, I'm sure, okay, let's go to Seismo Berkeley. Hopefully that will be, okay. Let's take one here, for example. No, we have to pull in a little bit, sorry. You can't see them, they're on top of each other. Okay, the red are the past hour, and the blue are the past day. These are the past hour. Look at this. That's a swarm. That's a swarm. Oh, this is the quake at Cabazon. This must be the 3.5. Is that the 3.5? Yes, okay. 3.5, 13.5 kilometers depth. Is that what it has here? The 3.5 is 13.5 kilometers depth. Okay, 10 kilometers it says here. Okay. Whatever, you see that sometimes there's differences. And this is it right here. This is the Coastal Volcanic Field USGS site. This is 8 miles. Okay. That's it right there. And you can see that it's quite active around Los Angeles, although they seem to be quieting down. I don't like the fact that that's the 3.5, and the west is a little bit quieted. Oh no, okay. It's, okay. And you can see now, this is the San Andreas fault. If we pull out, we may lose, let's pull out a little bit. Okay, okay. You see what happens is that the little ones disappear. Where it's full of little earthquakes. Let's go to Ridgecrest, right there. You can see that, it's still there. Hundreds of quakes. Okay. And again, all along the Garlic Fault system. And, okay, still pulling in 13,500 quakes in this area, in this frame alone. Hold on, let's see, we have more here. This is in the past 28 days. And we have to wait a little bit until, if there's so many hundreds of thousands to post, you can imagine that's why it takes so long. Okay, 7,500 in this frame, but I want to go up so that I can show you what's happening at the Long Valley Caldera, which is just north of Ridgecrest. Okay, heading north. Let's just head north, if it'll let us head north. That's why I don't like using this, because it takes forever, because I want to post all the earthquakes. Okay, UBB craters. let's go, Mammoth Lakes, okay, here we are. This is Long Valley Caldera. And you see, most times they don't call it Long Valley Caldera. They'll say Mono Lake, they'll say Mammoth Lakes, they'll say Tom's Place, right? And they'll say Whitney Mountain, things like that. But they won't say Long Valley Caldera Supervolcano because obviously, you know, it's a nail-biting thing when they say Long Valley Caldera Supervolcano has had about 700 quakes in 28 days. I mean, that's not going to sound very good. So obviously, now let's pull out. Okay, that, you see that also in the past videos, you know that the magma chamber, that's the one, that's the 3.5 that we saw before. That's another 3.2 they had yesterday. So that's a quake swarm right there. And that's, what is it? That's about 60 miles southeast of Los Angeles. So I'm sure they felt it in Los Angeles. Now this, okay, we saw the San Andreas fault is here, the Golet fault there, and the Walker Lane fault system here is the fault system that takes 25% of the pressure of the subduction of the Pacific plate under the North American plate. Okay, 3.6 magnitude near San Francisco, all right? 3.2 today. Eureka, okay. If we go in, I'm sure we're going to have a lot more little earthquakes here. If we go in, what's the matter? Is we pulled out too much? Okay, there we go. Because we had them off the coast as well, on the Blanco fracture zone and the Juan de Fuca plate. Okay, and if we go up north, Mount St. Helens, 62 quakes. Okay, we're heading back to San Francisco again. Oh, we had one there as well, just now. Magnitude 2. That's a new one, the past hour. This is the, okay, this is the geysers. Okay, this is the geysers, and that's the biggest geothermal plant in the world there. And you can see they've had over 1,000 quakes since past 28 days. Of course, that's a volcanic field. There's a magma body right there. That's why they have such a huge geothermal plant there. A lot of these quakes have increased in magnitude and frequency because of the establishment of the geothermal plant there. Okay, that's the geysers near Clear Lake. It's a volcanic field, as we see. Okay, and what is that? Okay, that's the 23rd, 3.6, 2.1. And San Andreas, as you can see, all along that line, has picked up in activity since the Ridgecrest earthquakes. Bakersfield is going to fill up now, and this garlic fault, as we can see here. Okay, there's thousands of them there. Let's go up to Yellowstone. Will it show us the Yellowstone activity? And as you can see the map down here, we're making our way up. We're making our way up. Hell's Half Acre. Wow. Okay. Craters of the Moon, that's in Idaho. That's the path of the, okay, this is the path of the old Yellowstone eruptions. And we're heading into that area. There we have Hebgen Lake. That's Hebgen Lake. That inverted Z is Hebgen Lake, where we had the 1959 earthquake of 7.3. That's a 2 magnitude, 6 miles down. And this is the outline of the caldera, is the orange line. This is Yellowstone Lake, and look at that. Wow, that's something new. 127 quakes in 28 days. And if we go here, $146 quakes, the biggest being 18 of August 16th, 4.2 at 4.7 miles depth. So this is about what? 280 quakes in 28 days in this area. Okay. And I think we had one here, yeah, that was on August 15th, 3.5. So, look at this. That's amazing. Where is it? I pulled out too much. There it is. It looks to be along a fault line of some kind. There's hundreds of faults around the caldera, of course. There's always hundreds of faults over the magma chamber of every volcano, because, you know, it moves, it emits gas, it emits geysers and steam, and of course it has to escape from somewhere, and usually that's where you have cracks. So yes, that's Yellowstone Lake over the caldera. So I'll leave links below for you for this. That's the story of the... I'm very glad University of California has announced that it will retrofit their buildings, making sure that every building is safe for the students. And also, because my parents were architects, they did tell me that in case of earthquakes or a natural disaster like a hurricane or, you know, a very bad snowstorm or whatever, there are 2 buildings, actually three, that you can go to for safety. Okay. Churches, because they're supposed to be made of reinforced concrete. Hospitals and school buildings. We're talking about the new ones, okay? We're not talking about ancient buildings. We're talking about new under the proper building codes. I know these were the strict building codes in Canada and New York City. So it's churches, hospitals, and school buildings. Of course, here now in the University of California, obviously, the old buildings were not at all safe, obviously. She has to retrofit them. But you can imagine what a reinforced concrete building looks like. And my parents used to say the earth has to open up and it would even fall into it as a block. It wouldn't break up. It would fall in like a box, let's put it that way. That's how strong a reinforced building is. It's all joined together in reinforced concrete, okay, with steel wires everywhere, all joined together, and it would fall in as a block. So that's the difference between something crumbling and something retaining its structure. I'll leave links below for you for this. Thank you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.